Welcome back to 80 Days Deep Undercover, Part 2.
When we first met, Brenda didn't trust me at all. I gave her my undercover identity and showed her my fake credentials while Angelina stood nearby. The identification read Dominic D'Angelo. It was legitimate, state-issued identification provided for the assignment. Even if another cop stopped me, it would hold. Eventually, I convinced Brenda to meet me again the following morning. She agreed, though reluctantly. Brenda knew the streets better than most cops ever could. She understood the prostitutes on Broadway, the traffickers, the addicts, the predators, everyone. That morning, I finally told her the truth, who I really was, who I worked for, and what my assignment actually involved. I introduced her to my captain and the assistant prosecutor. From that point on, Brenda became more than a contact. She became my eyes and ears on the street. Someone who could move through the world naturally and gather information no cop could ever get alone. By then, I was already 40 days into the assignment. I had gotten to know many of the girls working Broadway, but my cover inside Tent City itself was still thin. Sometimes I pretended to be high just to blend in. Other times, another undercover narcotics detective would pick me up in front of the camp, strictly for appearances. During those weeks, I watched patrol officers regularly stop and talk with the girls on Broadway. Some leaned casually into their cruisers, talking through the windows. Others waved from a distance, almost like they were trying to reassure anyone watching that nothing illegal was happening. About 2 months into the assignment, Angelina finally confided in Brenda. She was dating a cop. When I say dating, I mean having sex for money. And suddenly the entire investigation became real and worth the long nights hanging out in the city while my wife and 3 children were home sleeping, not knowing anything about my undercover assignment. After several failed attempts to catch Angelina with the cop she'd been seeing, I finally saw something. It was just before dawn. I was parked in a silver Toyota pickup outfitted for surveillance. A GoPro camera hidden along the dashboard and a long lens camera mounted beside me. The setup allowed me to simply point toward a target and hit a button, capturing rapid-fire shots without drawing attention. From about 100 yards away, I watched Angelina walk across Broadway and climb into the cab of a Mack 18-wheeler. I stayed put. Roughly 20 minutes later, she stepped back and started walking in my direction. I was getting ready to pull off when a Camden County Sheriff's van rolled up beside her. My finger immediately hit the camera trigger. The shutter ripped through over 100 photographs while the GoPro continued recording video. Angelina climbed into the passenger side of the van. The van pulled away, passed directly by me, then made a left toward Tent City. I followed from a distance. The van eventually parked near the railroad tracks, not far from the hole cut into the fence. Angelina climbed out first. A moment later, the driver stepped out. White t-shirt, sheriff's pants with the yellow stripe, duty holster still strapped to his hip. His shift had just ended. No question who he was. I watched him follow Angelina through the hole in the fence and disappear into Tent City. I parked my truck about a block away and moved in on foot. Before heading toward the fence, I glanced inside the van. Lying on the front seat was a brown paper lunch bag and a sheriff's uniform shirt. I snapped several photos with my cell phone, then headed toward the opening in the fence. That's when I saw movement. The officer was coming back, fast. Instinct kicked in immediately. I pulled my hood over my head and moved quickly back toward the van. I walked fast, imitating the way many addicts walk. A hurried pace, like they were late for work. In Narcotics, we call it the heroin walk. I was doing my best impression. It worked. The van drove right past me. After it disappeared, I waited a few minutes before heading back into Tent City to find Angelina. When I found her, she was high on heroin. I asked her who had given her the drugs. She looked at me with glassy eyes and slurred the word, "Tim." I contacted my captain and explained that I had finally captured everything on video and photographs. It had taken 80 days, but I finally had the evidence I needed. It turned out the sheriff's officer was responsible for transporting drug evidence from the county's sheriff's office to the burn facilities. Before the narcotics were packaged for destruction, Officer Tim would skim a little heroin from each batch. He controlled the count and the packaging of what was sent to be burned. Then he paid the girls on Broadway for sex, with heroin stolen from the evidence room. I arrested Officer Tim while he was on duty. When I searched his vehicle, I found a brown paper lunch bag sitting on the passenger seat. Inside were 14 small, sealed glassine bags of heroin. Since the time I first met Angelina and Brenda over 14 years ago, our relationships have remained intact. Brenda still lives on Broadway in a beautiful restored building from the early 1940s that once served as a doctor's office. She continues to support the women on the streets with prayers, food, and shelter. She has a name. Ministry has made a tremendous impact and has helped save many lives. We still talk often, and she's become one of my closest friends. Angelina eventually moved to California and got clean. She's married and still keeps in touch with us in a moment that perfectly reflected the bond they formed through hardship and survival. Brenda's husband walked Angelina down the aisle.